So thank you everybody for coming. I'm sorry to disturb you on what would have been your off day. On behalf of the organization, I'd like to thank David Blatt for his efforts and commitment to this franchise. He spent the last year and a half under incredible scrutiny. He was living here without his family, and he was working to mold a group of individuals that are very willful. And that's not easy, and I understand that. With that said, when you have the clarity of purpose we have as a franchise, decisions like these tend to make themselves. Ownership has instilled at a very deep level in this organization what we are all about, and every decision is made as an answer to the following question: does it put us in the best position to deliver championships to Northeast Ohio? And every decision we made is made with that question in mind. And I go to bed every night thinking about that question about our team all the time. This decision's made and wrought out of a lack of connectedness I see in our team. And I've witnessed this over the last couple weeks, really over the last month or so. It's made because we have a lack of fit with our personnel and our vision of how to use that personnel. So I'm measuring more than wins and losses. I'm focusing on a bigger picture in my evaluation. And I'm really trying to decide, are we working towards a championship? Are we building a championship culture? And really, most importantly for me, and I think a lot of you have seen this over the years, are our hearts, minds, and souls in what we're doing? Are we all in on this? Are we of this? Are we really trying to achieve something as a unit, or are we a collection of individuals? And what I see is that we need to build a collective spirit, a strength of spirit, and a collective will. Elite teams in this league always have that, and you see it everywhere. To be truly elite, we have to buy into a set of values and principles that we believe in. That becomes our identity. And if we can do that day in and day out, that becomes who we are. Halfway through this season, we have not yet developed this identity. And each step forward, unfortunately, I think you've seen we've taken 2 steps back. We know that the clear identity we strive for isn't going to happen overnight. And frankly, pretty good is not what we're here for. And I think you could look at a lot of different analytic measures of our team, and we're pretty good right now. And that's not what we're in the business to be. This decision is going to be measured entirely by whether or not we're in a better position to bring championships to Northeast Ohio. I know, and you have all seen, that we have a locker room of guys that really overcome adversity well. I think we've shown that over and over again. When we made the trades last year, when you saw us play with injuries last year in the finals and throughout the playoffs, the group was galvanized and they believed in each other. We are a team, unfortunately, that struggles more than any good team I've ever been with, and this is my 24th year in the NBA, with prosperity. I've never seen a locker room not be as connected after wins as they need to be. We've only been galvanized when expectations were not high and circumstances were somewhat artificial. Otherwise, we've been a group of tremendous individual talent with individual hopes and dreams. That's not a winning formula. I'm not leaving an unprecedented team payroll and all of the efforts that everybody that work in this organization to chance. So today we're elevating Tyronn Lue from his role as associate head coach to the role of head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He will not be serving in an interim role. I am more than confident that he has the pulse of our team and that he can generate the buy-in required to start to refine the habits and the culture that we've yet to build. Ty's work as our defensive coordinator over the past 2 seasons, or past season and a half, I suppose, has resulted in some tremendous game planning on that side of the ball, and he has been a conduit for both coaches, players, and staff members. Ty was an overachiever as a player. He was gritty, He took pride in his defense. He was all about winning. He was on great teams, was a first-round pick, struggled through injuries, was on some very bad teams, and played for some incredible coaches. And most importantly, through all of this, he was the type of person that was humble enough to learn from those coaches. So be that Phil Jackson, Doc Rivers, both of the Van Gundys, Scott Skiles. He's been with tremendous, tremendous basketball coaches. Our most glaring need is to understand and communicate role delineation and team sacrifice. We have to have group buy-in and team-first habits in order to become the team that we intend to be. We don't have to concern ourselves with expectations of a destination. We need to work towards tomorrow and honor one another with total commitment every single day. And if we can do that, if we can learn to express collective greatness and the joy that brings, then we can dream about something more. But right now, we're a really long way from that. I think most everybody who travels with the team knows that I'm with the team in an inordinate amount of the time. And I think many of you probably have felt a lot of this as well. With that, I'll take your questions.
Right here, Tom.
Tom Withers, Associated Press. Thanks, David. This obviously been building for some time. Did you have a final straw? And what did the Golden State loss do to accelerate this process?
I don't think the Golden State game by itself did very much. I think it's over time you start to sort of see the type of things that you want to be doing habitually start to erode a little bit. And sometimes you can win games in the league in the regular season and actually get worse. And I think we were regressing over a period of time. I don't think there was a final straw. You know, again, my job is to broker in what I know, and I'm in our locker room a lot. And I knew that there's just a disconnect there right now. There's a lack of spirit and connectedness that I couldn't accept. And frankly, halfway through the season, I think we have the time to right the ship. And I know that sounds crazy when you're sitting here with a 30-11 record. I understand that. But we were 30-11 with a schedule that was reasonably easy. And I'm judging a lot more than wins and losses.
Dave McMenamin, ESPN. Can you walk me through the procedural part of this? Like, when did you talk to David Blatt? When did you inform your team? When did Ty Lue find out about his new promotion?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. So Ty Lue, I spoke to him this afternoon here after meeting with Coach Blatt, let him know of the decision I had reached. When I spoke to Ty, we discussed the fact that I do not want him to be interim coach. I've seen some details have been mentioned of a contract that is absolutely not in place. What we talked about was I don't want him to be in an interim position. I believe in him to lead this franchise. That meant a lot to him. And most importantly, Ty Lue believes in the staff that we have assembled as well, the leadership that he has sitting with him on the bench. So he was very excited. I had our players brought into the facility, and I then told the players what the decision was, and we've gone from there to this.
Jason Lloyd, Akron Beacon Journal. We talked a lot about stability over the years and having stability. Was there any concern over that, over disruption? I understand you're elevating one from associate and up, so there's some stability there, but just the overall of another coaching change, how much did you weigh that in making the decision?
Not a lot, because I feel like we've had tremendous continuity over the last year and a half or so, and we've got great leadership in the locker room as well. I think we have a coaching staff because we have so much coaching experience, and because that group is very close as a unit in terms of the assistants in the way they dealt with our game planning. I feel like we won't miss a whole lot, but I do feel like we're going to gain a lot in some areas that were critical to us.
Jeff Shudell, News Herald. Did you talk to LeBron before this decision? And if not, then what was his reaction?
I did not. I didn't talk to any of the players before this decision. It's really critical to me for everybody to understand that this is my decision. This is our basketball staff's decision. I had a conversation with ownership where I got their approval to make this move. I'm not taking a poll. My job is to lead a franchise and to lead an organization where it needs to go. And that's what I'm tasked with doing, and that's what I did. I didn't ask anybody's opinion on the team. I'm in the locker room. I've done this a long time, and I know what it's supposed to feel like. I didn't need to ask questions.
David, Tony Cartagena, ESPN Cleveland, you mentioned the regression over a period of time. Was that more so this season, as of late, obviously, but then taking it back to the finals last season, did you see a regression in the locker room at that point in time that made you even think about making this move at the end of last year?
No, I didn't see that. I saw a really galvanized group there. And it's important that I take that into account a great deal, Tony, because I think what we've done is we've always risen against adversity and great odds. We're really good in that setting. And that gives me great belief that this adversity is adversity we'll overcome as well. But no, that wasn't a belief I had at that time. In fairness to Coach Blatt, as soon as I believed that we were at a point where this needed to be done, I did it. I didn't delay for any particular reason.
David, Rick Nolan from the Medina Gazette and Chronicle Telegram. You mentioned being unable to handle prosperity early. Did you have inklings you might have to make this move earlier, and were those put off by the fact you wanted to see how this team played when it got to full health? What kind of factor did that play in the decision?
I really didn't, Rick, have those thoughts prior to our coming together healthy. Once again, because when we were faced with the adversity of the injuries, we were very good. What I wanted to see was what we would look like when we had a full roster of pieces to use. And I think our basketball staff was spending a lot of time analyzing that and looking at what it was we were doing game in and game out in terms of the small things, the attention to detail that may not show up in wins and losses or box scores. And we paid a lot of attention to that. But no, it wasn't something that I had the notion would be coming. Literally, and I said this in the opening statement, and I'm sorry I had to stammer through that, but this happened rather quickly. We've got a group of people that literally answer that question every night and with every decision you make. Are we doing the best things we can possibly do to deliver championships here? And I had always argued that we were. And when I reached the point that I did not believe that relative to this position, we did something different. It's a really simple formula that we have.
Melinda Adams, ESPN. What was the reaction from the players? I know you probably can't give individual, but overall, what did you gather?
I think we have a group that understands what's at stake. I think we have a group that liked Coach Blatt, quite frankly. And again, because I didn't take a poll, I wasn't quite sure what the mood would be. And it was the mood you would expect in a locker room that's 30-11. They were surprised. I think they appreciate that I'm making a decision that I believe is best for us as a group. But we've got a bunch of guys in there that know what their job is. So we had a fairly business-like group.
Chris Haynes, Cleveland.com. Griff, you could make the argument that things were worse after last season. I'm just talking about the tension between certain players and coach. Why give it another try? Why did you pursue to go another season and have to do it at this juncture rather than during the off season?
Well, I think it wasn't a function of tension at that point. I think it was a function of a lack of familiarity. I think guys were really upset about a lot of different things. I think guys were upset that we didn't have enough talent when it came time to it at the end, and that's on me. So I felt like what we needed to do was improve our roster. I think we did that. I think we filled an awful lot of holes. I think ownership spent an unprecedented amount of money on this team and in the process to build this team, and they've been willing to do whatever it takes to win. And my thought was that with continuity, the things that you all perceived as tension relative to that were really tension relative to not knowing each other very well. And I wanted to see what this looked like if we grew the family together for another year and give them a chance to really come together. And had we been better in times of prosperity, I wouldn't have felt the need to do this. Because again, I thought in the finals we were the best version of ourselves we ever were. And you can tell that because guys made the decision very quickly to re-sign here and be part of what we were doing. There wasn't a lot of reticence on the part of the players to come back here. They were really excited to get back to work, and I think we all were. So that was why the timing was what it was.
David, Mark Schwab, Cleveland 19. Can you explain a little bit how the conversation went with Dan? Was he, when you went to him with this, how surprised was he? Did he sense something like this might be coming? How did he react?
I think the very first time it came up, he was surprised. I think that's something that, from Dan's perspective, was hard to fathom in terms of our record and position at the time. I think he also understands that we're making this decision for the right reasons, that the process we go through in decision making is sound. And frankly, I think if the finals run did anything for us at all, it bought some trust in what we're doing. And I very greatly appreciate the trust ownership has shown in me in letting me do this today.
Marla Ridenour, Akron Beacon Journal. I know you said you didn't take a poll and you didn't talk to the players, but given the history of the team, there's a notion out there that, LeBron is, kind of a coach killer, I guess is the term. And I don't know if you could speak to that or just, I don't.
No, I certainly can. So I've got a problem in general with this narrative, and those of you that have been with us for a while understand this. LeBron plays for this team, and he's the leader of this team, and he desperately wants to bring a championship to this team. LeBron doesn't run this organization. LeBron is about this organization, and he is of this organization, and he's of our community. But this narrative that somehow we're taking direction from him, it's just not fair. It's not fair to him in particular, but frankly, it's kind of not fair to me and our group anymore. I'm not somebody who believes we don't talk to the family before we make changes. We do, and I've told you that. I talk to many players when we make decisions of magnitude that will change the locker room. This was one where I didn't need to ask them questions. I've watched them interact with each other for a very long period of time under a lot of different circumstances. I know what something that's not right looks like. And I believe this was the right decision to make. And it's very possible that it's the wrong decision to make. You may hear that from our players tomorrow, and I'm open-minded to that. They don't have to like it. They have to respect that this is what we're trying to do.
David, Rick Nolan again. How do you hope or think that changing the coach will improve this team's ability to handle prosperity? And Tyronn being a former player and by all reports being so well liked by the players, do you think that will play a role in it?
I think clear delineation of roles, clear messaging. I think we had probably gotten to a point, and it's ironic because David really led the push to bring Ty here to begin with, and really gave him the latitude to run our defense and to do some things that were really representative of what a good coach David Blatt really is. He understood what he didn't understand and what he didn't know, and he empowered people to do the things they do well. And so what many of you saw was people jumping over David to do their job. They were doing exactly what David asked them to do. And I think because of that, I've gotten to see all of these assistants do a great deal of things other assistants don't get to do. And I've also gotten to see Ty interact with players, and I've gotten to talk to people who have been with him other places. One of the things that's fascinating, and a lot of you that travel with us get to see this, is you'll see Ty sit courtside at a game somewhere, and a player on the other team will sprint from one end of the floor to the other to Ty. Ty doesn't seek that out. The people that he's been with have a deep connectedness to him and an appreciation for who he is. And our team needs an appreciation for what they're doing. They need an appreciation for one another. And I think a different hand, and Ty's hand in particular, is what we need.
David, Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com. You've used the word fit for a long, long time, and you mentioned some of the things that Ty brings. Every group is different. What is it about Ty that makes him such a better fit now than David?
Again, I think a lot of what Rick just asked and touched on in terms of the background he has, I think in terms of the opportunity he's been given to grow here, I think the voice and the attitude he brings to this is a little bit different. And again, different isn't to imply that what we had was bad. I think the results of what we've done to this point speak for themselves. But every situation calls for something unique, and that's why I use the word fit. This is not an indictment of David Blatt as a coach. And it's not to say that Ty Lue is a better basketball coach. He's a better basketball coach for this team today.
David McMenamin, ESPN. Without, I don't think we even need to name the names, but there are certain players that you guys gave contracts to over the last couple of years that I think a lot of people can look at as not reaching their potential. And when you decided to hand over the team to Tyronn, did he come up with a different way to activate these players and get more out of them?
We've talked over a long period of time as a staff, and I've met with the staff as an entire coaching staff, and our basketball staff, many of whom are here now, have met with coaches as well and looked at how we get the best out of our personnel. And many coaches have had suggestions for what need to happen. I know there's a plan in place that will take perhaps advantage of some of the things we don't currently do, but I also think a lot of what we're doing is going to continue to be done. It just may be done with a different level of urgency and connectedness. We've put an awful lot in the playbook to take care of an awful lot of people, and now I think it's about identifying which of those things we really can believe in and go to with some form of regularity. You know, to a huge degree, I'm doing this because I believe in that team, maybe more than they believe in themselves sometimes. And this is something that has to get done quickly. But they have a plan in place, and I think have always had a plan in place. It's just a measure of how it gets presented.
Two more.
Jason Lue, Maccabi Journal. Actually, I had two short, quick ones. When you
We'll give you that.
Thank you. I can't remember what your word you used, but basically when you were saying the handling of success, they're not handling success well. Can you give a tangible example of that, of what you've seen that, because, I mean, people are going to look at this and say, my God, they're, what, 30-11. What are you talking about? Of course they're being successful. Can you just kind of identify something specifically? And then secondly, I think we've all seen what you were talking about earlier with the staff and, you know, with Ty calling timeouts from the bench last year and with guys jumping up and calling timeout. We've seen all that at length. Will Ty's elevation now kind of settle this down and put guys back from a coaching staff into the role that is more accustomed to seeing in the NBA?
Well, I think the last point, Jason, you made is important, accustomed to seeing in the NBA. Again, David asked his staff to have a very active role, and he empowered them very well. A lot of what you were not comfortable seeing or thought was indicative of one thing was actually indicative of David's faith in his staff. And I don't think David ever got any credit for that. So it's something that I think people need to understand. The guy was masterful that way in terms of letting guys do what they need to do. As to the first part, I don't think there's a... I'm sorry, Jason. Give me the question again.
Just a tangible example of how we're successful.
So I don't think there's one tangible example, but I can tell you unequivocally that, you know, there are 50 teams since 2000, 2001 that on this date had a winning percentage of 70 or better, 700 or better. 8 of them won championships. So 42 teams had a similar opportunity to this and did not cash in on it. One of those teams was a Phoenix team I was with. And that team handled prosperity better than any team of players I've ever seen. When they got rolling, they just continued to roll. And the vibe in that locker room was incredible. And when adversity hit, that wasn't our strength. This team is not galvanized after wins. When we're really galvanized is when we're told we can't win, and we do. Well, this team is supposed to win a lot of basketball games right now. And we haven't dealt well with the pressure of that. But I also think that if you're around us very long, you know that we respond really well to a measure of chaos. And I think to a huge degree our circumstances always created that. So maybe I'm creating that now. But I'm not doing it without a lot of thought about what it's supposed to look like. And this team has not handled expectation well. And I'd like to see them forget all of that. I'd like to see them forget everything that they think about other than sacrifice to one another. And I believe that's where we're at, and I believe Ty can do it.
Chris, any shot for Chris?
Chris Cleveland.com. Coach Blatt was kind of defensive last night and talking about the media's role and, I guess, blowing things out of proportion of where they stand right now. I'm curious with that. I'm curious to know, was the decision made today, was this something that was talked about with him, you know, leading up to today, or was it strictly something that happened today?
Yeah, no, Chris, I appreciate that. No, it was not something that he felt pressure from that then made him respond the way he did. His first inkling of this happened today in my office. So no.